I want to start with what I talked about in my monologue about how the country is reacting to the reaction to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Megan, how would you sort of set the stage here of where we are right now? Are things still moving quickly or moving in any direction, or are things settling down from your point of view?
I think people are still grieving and still processing what happened. And even one of my girlfriends yesterday said, I saw two murders last week on social media. Obviously, the Ukrainian woman who was stabbed to death, and then obviously Charlie Kirk. So I think people are still processing it. But a lot of people I know, and myself included, were so inspired by Erica's speech and eulogy that I think there's a lot of healing going on. And I just think, not to be gross, but politically, I think it's very hard to debate that Republicans look like the more peaceful party and the more peaceful group of people after a tragedy. As she pointed out, there was prayer and coming together and, you know, fellowship and community. And I know when a figure on the left dies, it's looting and chaos and, possibly hurting police officers. So I think the politics of it are also very interesting, as well as the cultural and social element of it.
Yeah, well said. Ben, leaving aside the question of Jimmy Kimmel and your co-host, Senator Cruz' view, which is shared by other conservatives, Wall Street Journal, Ed Board, et cetera, how would you characterize what the divisions are between red and blue America in thinking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk? What are sort of the areas of even, let's say, legitimate dispute between how people are processing it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that there's such love and compassion that has happened from conservatives. I was at the funeral and I can tell you it did not feel political being there. It felt spiritual. The praise and worship that was beforehand, the people that were there because they just felt called to show up. The plane that I was on out there when we landed, it just started singing Amazing Grace. And it was one of those moments you're like, is this happening on a United flight? This isn't Southwest. And even the people that morning that were showing up and they knew they weren't going to get in, they weren't angry. They just wanted to be with other people that were grieving. I saw people that were just sitting around talking to one another that didn't get in. And it was sad because there's 100,000 people basically showed up, didn't have a ticket. No one had a ticket in essence. It was just general admission. And when they shut those doors a little before 8 o'clock, there was 100,000 people. They're like, what do we do? No one was angry. I saw people holding hands and praying. And that was, I think, the most striking difference between we watched one of our own, literally a friend of mine, be assassinated. And there was no looting or rioting or anger or revenge. It was come together, love, pray, and recenter around, okay, what was his goal? What would he want us to do? You looked at his wife when she said, I forgive the killer. I don't know if I could have done that, but I also, being in the room, understood what her point was, which was, I have to move on with his legacy. I don't have time to hate him. I don't have time to want revenge. He wanted to bring people together. He wanted to have a grand debate on college campuses. I actually think you're going to see a different Republican Party. The people that I saw, whether it was Tucker Carlson or Meghan Kelly or the members of the cabinet, Kash Patel, there was a different temperature and it was really low. I talked with Glenn Beck for a moment and it was the same thing with him. I think my demeanor is probably going to change when I'm on TV fighting people that I disagree with, because I think that's where we're headed now. And so, look, if the Democratic Party, if you talk the politics for it for a second, Mark, I think there is a need for a leader in the Democratic Party right now to take the lead and to ratchet down the anger, the bitterness. I mean, the fact that they couldn't get a unanimous vote with Democrats in the House to just say, this is wrong, what happened to Charlie Kirk is beyond me. And the fact that the leaders, the de facto leaders of the Democratic Party out there still being angry. You look at guys like Keith Olbermann, who referred to a good friend of mine over at CNN saying that Scott Jennings, you're next, and put that on X. Like, what world are we living in after what we just saw where that is appropriate? And so I hope somebody will step forward and do that.
Yeah, Ben, I couldn't agree with you more. I was out on the streets around the stadium at about 4 a.m. and then I was there for more than 12 hours. And during the ceremony itself, I had the exact same reaction you did, which is I thought I wish everyone in the country could be here. I wish everyone could feel what's in this room, set aside their nitpicking about things they may not have liked about Charlie Kirk, and just appreciate the spirit in the room and how much people wanted to grieve together and how much they wanted to think about the future. My thought throughout, and I have from the beginning, I have been so concerned, the Democrats, and you both have seen this. I still hear from people saying, I never really heard of Charlie Kirk. Didn't really know anything about him. And even now they don't. One of the best ways for Democrats and others to understand Charlie is to listen to the podcast, which is being carried on. There's no long-term plan. But Tucker hosted an episode, and others have. I want you to listen to a little bit. Blake Neff, one of the producers there, who used to work with Tucker. This is a clip from the show, and talks about the thing that Erica Kirk did in forgiving the alleged killer, which again people look at as a piece of TV, a little piece of video, but it's profound, and the meaning of it, I think, needs to be considered by people more deeply. So here's a piece of sound from Charlie's podcast with his team.
This powerful moment where she said what for many, Benny, is the unthinkable. I forgive this man who just robbed the world of a great hero and a titan of a man, our friend. But I'm very well aware that, yes, he was my, dear personal friend. We spent so much time together, but yet he belongs to the world. He belongs to history. And here Erica was doing this not out of a personal relationship, with her husband, but really because she understands that she is an instrument for God right now.
Yes.
And so she dug so deep and did this beautiful thing, and it's created a lot of chatter online, and I want to get into it now. What's the clip, guys? It's 19. Go ahead and play it.
On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Meghan, I don't know how old a kid would have to be for a parent to try to explain that. Your girls are probably a little too young, maybe, but how would you explain to a child old enough to understand why this is such a profound thing that Erica did?
Oh my gosh, I don't know how I would explain it to a child other than she is a deeply evolved, deeply faithful, God-fearing woman. I mean, to do that, I remember when my dad died, and again, it was of cancer. He was not assassinated, and I had to give a public eulogy. I mean, I was very intense, angry, upset, going through a lot of different kinds of emotions. And I just thought, I don't know if I could have done that. I'm with Ben. I just, her beloved husband and partner, and they seemed like they had this really beautiful love story, was assassinated in this really horrific way in front of the world. And I think, how I would explain it to a child is I would just say she did what Jesus tells us to do and did what Jesus did and what God did. But I think she has become a really, really significant national figure. And I don't even mean politically, I mean spiritually. I mean, she's someone people are referencing even just, in our world about how we should live our lives and how we should really follow scripture a lot closer. And I just think it's going to be a moment that I probably will talk to my children about in the future, because I think it's going to be remembered as a deeply important moment in history.
Ben, this is not meant to be a trick question. It's something I'm really pondering as I try to play whatever small role I can in bringing the country together. Why can't conservatives think about forgiving Keith Olbermann or Jimmy Kimmel? What the grievances against them are not that they assassinated someone. So if we're all so admiring of what Erica did, why can't we say, well, I can forgive Jimmy Kimmel for one stray statement made?
I think there's a difference in the mindset, and certainly for me, the reason why I am frustrated with Keith Olbermann, for example, is you're advocating and asking for someone who's a lunatic to choose another conservative to assassinate and to build on this momentum. I think that has to be called out because that's dangerous and it's going to cost someone their life if this continues. I think the difference with Jimmy Kimmel is a completely different box I put it in. I think there does need to be accountability when you do say something as horrific as he said and mock the death of someone and claim that the shooter was conservative. And if you're not willing to apologize for it, that's a problem as well. I also said yesterday on TV, I have no problem with him coming back on TV. I think good luck with your career. I'm not watching, but I don't want people to be canceled for what they say. I'm in favor of free speech. I do not want the FCC, and I took a lot of heat last week for saying that I do not want us to silence or censor people because I know one day it will happen to me when the other side is in power. If we go down this road, I'm in favor of flag burning, for example. I stood up against the president on that one because I want to make sure we have the right to do it. So I don't look at it as an issue of, quote, forgiveness. I look at more of an issue of accountability. I don't really care about Overman. I do care about the words and whose life it could cost. And so that's why it needs to be called out.
Understood why you're concerned about both, although I also hear you, how you feel about Kimmel. This alleged killer, he's not apologized. He's not asked for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to have a fight with either of you. I'm just trying to say there's so much white hot anger on the right, and I understand it from a human point of view. But why can't people show the same grace towards Kimmel that Erica showed towards a killer? Why can't we all just be less angry about it?
Yeah. I'm not angry at Jimmy Kimmel. I am.
But just sorry. But people are. But
I really think it comes back to the issue of safety. I mean, the hardest conversation I've ever had with my kids was I was putting my son to bed, and he looked at me. He's like, "Dad, is someone going to kill you?" When your 9-year-old knows that, like that's a real thing. When you're I had one of the most morbid days of my life the other day. I got fit for a bulletproof vest so I can wear it underneath my suit when I'm doing public events. I added more life insurance by the millions, and I had my son ask me if someone's going to kill me. That is where the temperature is in the room and the concern for conservatives. So when I do see someone that is advocating for more of this, I think I have a duty and a responsibility to call it out so that others don't join with him. I really am not mad at Overman. I could care less about Keith. I do care about who he may inspire. And I think forgiving the killer is a little bit different from the standpoint that I don't want my heart filled with hate. I don't hate that killer, by the way. I think I learned from what Erica said, which is, you know what? We don't have time to deal with him. Let the justice system deal with that. I'm going to move on past that. I'm going to go out there and be bold with my faith. I think Vice President Vance put it perfectly. He said, I've shared more about my faith in the last 2 weeks than I have in my entire life. I would add myself to that list. I have talked more on interviews, on Fox, on CNN and others about my Christian faith, which in politics, sometimes you kind of separate it out a little bit. People know where you're coming from, but you don't really intertwine it. I won't do that anymore because it's time to move on past that.
Yeah, Meghan.
Can I interject too, Mark? I mean,
of course.
Ben and I, as you know, are very old, close personal friends. And we have leaned on each other a lot the past few weeks. I don't think you'll mind me sharing that, Ben.
100%.
And I called him right after the assassination. I was on my way to pick up my daughter at school crying, asking him to pray with me. He was telling me he was going to get fitted for a bulletproof vest. About a year ago, Ben was on my show, the first incarnation before it went to two-way, and we were just outside eating, getting a burrito, and some people came up to us and started screaming at us, filming us, yelling about, I think, Israel. It's on the bowels of the internet someplace. Ben and I go out in public sometimes, and people don't want us in their restaurants. They're very unkind, and I just think we are obviously not at Charlie Kirk's level, nowhere near it. But anyone who is conservative and public about their beliefs, you know what it feels like to be harassed in public, to have people not want to serve you, not want to be around you. You're socially ostracized in so many different ways. I worry about just like my husband and I at my kids' school right now, like we're so controversial, we're so loud, like, what's going to happen to our kids socially? And that's just a different experience than it is for a liberal commentator. I would wager that Nicole Wallace does not have the same experience outside Capitol Hill eating a burrito with her conservative friend that Ben and I do. And I think that's where my anger is coming from, is like, I'm happy to tone it down and like meet in the middle and have conversations. But the other side has to do it as well. And I feel like I haven't seen a lot of good faith attempts on the other side, and in a lot of different ways. Even like, Van Jones was talking about how he got a message from Charlie Kirk after he'd been assassinated. He had had a message from him that he hadn't read. And then he was asked if he would go on his show, and his answer was no, I wouldn't platform him. Like, even now, your answer is no, I wouldn't platform him. So I think it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to still be struggling through this. Erica is a very evolved woman, and a very, her devotion to her faith is very obvious to everyone. And I think we have to give some grace that not all of us are at her level yet. I'm certainly trying. I want to be that kind of Christian, but I am certainly not there. And last final thing, I remember after 9/11, when I was 16, talking to my dad about how scared I was and like, what are we going to do to these people? And he told me, God will have mercy on their souls, but we will not. And for some reason, that has always stuck with me, that'll make me feel better. And I'm not saying that's how I feel about anyone on the left or anything like that, but I think sometimes it's okay to be angry in situations like that. And I just want even the like mild harassment of conservatives to stop being so socially acceptable. And I hope you don't mind shared our personal
No,
experiences.
you're 100% right. I mean, I was at my son's flag football game 2 weeks ago, and a guy walked up and just started cussing me out, dog cussing me, give me the middle finger. I'm holding my child's hand. And I had to look at my son and say, go on to the field, buddy. And I looked at him and I was like, man, I don't know you. I'm sorry you feel this way. I hope you enjoy your Saturday. You try to de-escalate that, but we're seeing more of that in the grocery store. I've seen it on flights. I had a lady that wouldn't fly the other day, 3 or 4 months ago, and she started screaming, get this. She called me a terrorist on the plane. And I'm like, that makes everyone around you like, who is this guy? Like, that is not a situation you want to be in. And there's too much of that. And I go back to the leadership of the Democratic Party. You couldn't get a unanimous vote in Congress to say that what happened to Charlie Kirk was wrong. You got a unanimous vote with Republicans about someone that was killed in Minnesota weeks before. I don't know how we are this divided, where the left is this angry at the right, where they're saying, yeah, one of yours got killed, we're going to have fun with this, and no, we're not going to condemn it.
Also, Maxine Waters told her constituents to go up to Republicans if they're in public and harass them and make them feel uncomfortable. And then it happened to Sarah Huckabee Sanders at a restaurant here in DC. I remember Ivanka Trump being kicked out of a spin cycle class here in DC. It's like, I am happy to meet in the middle. I'm happy to tone it down, but it would be great if there was anybody on the left who had the same kind of enthusiasm and fervor that Erica Kirk has.
What troubles me is they'll pay lip service to it. They'll say violence is wrong, in all cases, but they simply will not call for the stop the harassment of conservatives. And I guess just to close this segment, why do you think that is? Do you think they don't know about it, or they don't believe it's happening, or they don't want to get crosswise with the base? Why wouldn't Democratic leaders say, if they heard your story, Ben, just now about being at the game with your son? Why wouldn't they condemn that?
I think, number one, I don't think they have a problem with it as a party. I really don't. I think this has been ratcheting up since 2016. I saw it change in 2016. I was at CNN then as a commentator. I could not do an appearance without just vile at Twitter coming after me and just daily death threats. I hope someone puts a bullet in you. I hope someone kills you. I hope you die a miserable death. It was to the point where you were numb by it. And that started in 16, I think, with the hatred of Donald Trump and the pendulum switch where it was like this acceptable. You look at the data, too, now, this youngest generation in this country, 42% believe that political violence is necessary or acceptable behavior after Charlie Kirk's assassination. That poll was taken, not before, after. And so I think we are at a point now where there are conservatives that are just saying, hey, can we just agree now that this is wrong? And there's a Democratic Party saying, we don't agree that it's wrong. We are advocating for it. I don't know how they come back from that, but I do believe there's a star to be made in the Democratic Party that would just stand up and say, this is wrong, and we need to condemn it. And the people within our party, we are going to police. Conservatives do a better job of policing our own. We will ruin someone's career in the Republican movement if they were out there advocating for the death of Democrats. Like, I've seen how fast they get kicked out of the Tea Party when they were saying things about Barack Obama. And I condemned it and called them out on my show by name. and those people were excommunicated. Find me the last Democrat that was excommunicated by the Democratic Party for what they're saying. The Ilhan Omars get more TV time. They get prime time on MSNBC and on CNN. They are on the Sunday morning talk shows the same day as Charlie Kirk's funeral saying that he is a terrible person. I don't know how they come back from this, but I know what I can do is I can honor his death. I can fight for what he believed in. I can try to have a better conversation. But I will say this. I feel like we are on a road right now where every conservative that does this is wondering who's next. The hugs that were given at the funeral were different. It was like, be safe. I can't tell you how many people told me to be safe, and I told them to be safe. I don't want to live in that world forever.
So now let me tell you a story. It's about a guy named Leo Grillo. He was on a road trip and he came across a dog. It was a Doberman who was severely underweight and clearly in a lot of trouble. Leo rescued that Doberman and he gave him a name. He called him Delta. Sadly, though, Delta was just one of many animals that needed help, which gave Leo an inspiration. He started something called Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. Delta Rescues saved thousands of dogs, cats, and horses from the wilderness. They always provide their animals with shelter, love, safety, and a good home. This dedication and everlasting love for animals, that's Leo's mission, and it's Leo's legacy. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions to operate from people like all of us. So if you want caring for these animals to be part of your own legacy, speak with your estate planner because there are tax savings and estate planning benefits too. You can grow your estate while letting your love for animals live well into the future. Check out now the estate planning tab on their website to learn more and to speak with an advisor. We call a dog man's best friend for a reason. You can help those who need it most. So please, right now, visit deltarescue.org to learn more. Again, go for more information to deltarescue.org.